The massive listening station floated in the dark space between two dead stars. Its bioorganic walls pulsed with a soft blue light as thousands of Zephyrian operators worked at their posts. Their long, flowing tentacles moved across control surfaces that looked more like coral reefs than computer panels. The air inside smelled of salt water and deep ocean currents. Commander Velthara stretched her primary feeding tentacle and tasted the chemical signals in the water-filled chamber. Something new had caught the attention of the monitoring systems. For the first time in 3 cycles, the deep space scanners had detected organized radio transmissions from an unexplored region of space. "Report," she gurgled in the liquid speech of her people. Technician Mordas swam over to her station, his blue-green skin shifting colors with excitement. "Commander, we have intercepted multiple transmission sources from a small yellow star system. The signals appear to be coming from the 3rd planet." Velthara's eye stalks turned toward the main display screen. The image showed a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. White clouds swirled across its surface like foam on disturbed water. "Show me the transmission patterns," she ordered. The screen filled with data streams. Radio waves, television signals, and digital communications painted a picture of a busy world. Velthara studied the patterns with growing interest. The signals came from thousands of different locations across the planet's surface. "Curious," she muttered. "What do our xenobiologists make of this?" Mordas consulted his biocomputer interface. The living machine responded by growing a small tendril that connected directly to his nervous system. After a moment, his skin flashed yellow with surprise. "The analysis is complete, Commander. The xenobiology department has classified the inhabitants as a primitive insect species. They appear to swarm across the planet's surface in massive numbers. Their settlements follow predictable hive-like patterns, and their behavior shows typical insect social organization." Velthara's tentacles curled with amusement. Another bug world. The galaxy was full of them. Most never developed beyond simple tool use before destroying themselves with wars or environmental collapse. "Have they achieved spaceflight?" she asked. "Limited capability only," Mordas reported. "They have sent small probes to nearby planets in their system. Very primitive chemical rockets. Nothing that could threaten civilized space." The commander studied the data more carefully. The human settlements did look remarkably like insect colonies when viewed from space. Vast cities sprawled across the continents in organized patterns. Transportation networks connected them like the tunnels of an ant farm. The radio chatter reminded her of the chemical communication signals that worker bugs use to coordinate their activities. "Estimated technological development?" she inquired. "Perhaps 2,000 or 3,000 years behind our current level," came the reply. "Their most advanced weapons appear to be fusion-based devices. Crude but effective for pest control, we assume." Velthara made a dismissive gesture with her secondary tentacles. "File the system under insignificant species monitoring. Set the computers to check on them every 50 cycles. If they manage to develop faster than light travel, we might need to classify them as a minor nuisance." The technician's skin flashed understanding. "Should we inform the Council of Depths about this discovery?" "No need," Velthara replied. "The Council has more important matters to consider. The expansion into the next galactic arm requires all our attention. These insects will either destroy themselves or remain trapped in their little system forever. Either way, they pose no threat to the hegemony." As the monitoring station continued its sweep of local space, the data about the human homeworld was automatically filed in the Zephyrian databases. The entry was brief and dismissive. Sol 3. Inhabited by primitive terrestrial insects. Population estimated at several billion. Technology level negligible. Threat assessment none. Recommendation: ignore unless circumstances change. Deep in the council chambers on the hegemony's capital world, Admiral Kethara reviewed the weekly intelligence reports. Her massive form rested in a pool of mineral-rich water that helped support her weight in the artificial gravity field. As the Supreme Naval Commander, she needed to stay informed about all potential threats to Zephyrian expansion. The report about the insects in the Sol system took up exactly 3 lines in a document that was hundreds of pages long. She barely noticed it among the detailed analyses of the crystalline Veltar military formations and the defensive capabilities of the gaseous Nethrim worlds. "Insects," she muttered, her voice creating bubbles in the water around her speaking membrane. "The galaxy is crawling with them." Her aide, a younger Zephyrian named Corvel, swam closer. Admiral, should we assign a patrol ship to monitor their system? Cathara's eye stalks swiveled to focus on him. For insects? We have real enemies to worry about. The Veltar Confederacy has been reinforcing their border worlds. The Nethrim Collective is building new defense platforms. Those are civilized species with real military capabilities. She gestured toward the strategic display that dominated the center of the chamber. Holographic representations of star systems hung in the water, connected by glowing lines that showed trade routes and military patrol paths. Look at this, she continued. We control 47 star systems and are expanding into 12 more. Every one of those systems has required careful planning and significant military resources to capture. Do you think we should waste ships watching bugs crawl around on a dirt ball? Corvell's skin shifted to show agreement. Of course not, Admiral. I was simply being thorough. Thoroughness is good, Cathara acknowledged, but so is perspective. By the time those insects develop any real technology, if they ever do, we will control this entire region of space. They will be completely surrounded by hegemony worlds. If they ever become a problem, which they won't, we can deal with them easily. The Admiral turned her attention back to the more pressing matters. The expansion plan required coordination between hundreds of bioships and millions of military personnel. New worlds needed to be surveyed, conquered, and integrated into the hegemony's growing empire. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, automated Zephyrian monitoring stations continued to intercept human communications. The computers dutifully recorded and analyzed every transmission, looking for signs of technological advancement or military activity. What they found seemed to confirm the original assessment. The humans built more settlements, launched more primitive spacecraft, and filled the electromagnetic spectrum with their constant chatter. To Zephyrian artificial intelligence systems, it all looked exactly like the behavior of social insects. The computers noted that human settlements grew rapidly and spread across their planet in predictable patterns. They observed that humans worked together in large groups to accomplish tasks that no individual could complete alone. They recorded evidence of complex coordination between different human settlements across vast distances. All of this data was automatically filed under typical insect social behavior and stored in the databases. No Zephyrian analyst ever looked at it closely enough to notice the subtle differences that might have suggested something more dangerous than simple bugs. As the cycles passed, the hegemony's attention remained focused on conquering and absorbing the more advanced civilizations in their path. The insects in the Sol system continued to be ignored, their activities monitored only by automatic systems that had been programmed to look for very specific types of threats. The Zephyrians had no way of knowing that those insects were learning, adapting and preparing for the day when two very different types of civilization would finally meet among the stars. The bioship Deep Current moved through space like a living creature, which it was. Its hull breathed slowly, expanding and contracting as massive lungs processed the thin atmosphere inside. Organic corridors pulsed with the rhythm of a giant heart buried deep in the ship's core. The vessel was 3 kilometers long and had been grown rather than built in the shipyards of the hegemony's capital world. Admiral Cathara floated in the command pool at the ship's center, her tentacles connected to nerve interfaces that let her feel everything the ship experienced. Through the bioship's senses, she could taste the cosmic radiation streaming past the hull and feel the gravitational pull of distant stars. "Status report," she commanded. Commander Velnara swam up to her position, skin flashing with the colors of military efficiency. "The Veltar Confederacy's final stronghold has fallen, Admiral. Their crystal cities lie in ruins. The survivors have requested terms of surrender." Cathara's tentacles curled with satisfaction. The crystalline aliens had put up more resistance than expected, but in the end, their rigid military thinking had been no match for Zephyrian biotechnology. Where the Veltar had built fixed fortifications, the hegemony had simply grown new weapons specifically designed to shatter crystal structures. "Acceptable terms?" she asked. They offered to provide their quantum computing technology in exchange for the preservation of their remaining population centers. Velnara reported, "Our xenobiologists estimate their quantum processors could advance our navigation systems by several centuries." "Agreed. Process their surrender and begin integration protocols." Cathara paused to taste the chemical signals in the water around her. "What news from the Nethrim front?" Another officer approached, his skin displaying the deep purple patterns that indicated intelligence work. The gaseous Nethrim collective continues to resist, but their defense platforms are falling one by one. General Morthek reports that their energy-based weapons are proving ineffective against our adaptive hull armor. This was exactly what Cathara had expected. The Nethrim were an ancient species that had controlled their region of space for thousands of years, but they had grown comfortable and predictable. Their weapons had not evolved significantly in centuries, while Zephyrian bioships adapted to new threats within hours. Estimated time until complete victory? She inquired. No more than 20 cycles, Admiral. The Nethrim lacked the creativity to develop new tactics quickly enough to counter our advances. Kethera allowed herself a moment of pride. In less than 100 cycles, the hegemony had conquered 2 major galactic civilizations and absorbed dozens of minor species. Their empire now controlled nearly 100 star systems and was growing rapidly. The Admiral's satisfaction was interrupted by a junior technician who approached with obvious nervousness. His skin flickered with the uncertain patterns of someone bearing potentially unwelcome news. "Admiral," he began hesitantly, "the automated monitoring systems have flagged increased activity in the Sol system." Kethara's eye stalk swiveled toward him with annoyance. "The insect world? What kind of activity?" The bugs appear to have launched several new space probes. Their electromagnetic emissions have also increased by approximately 30% over the past 10 cycles. The Admiral made a dismissive gesture. Typical insect agitation. They probably detected our expansion into nearby regions and are scurrying around in confusion. Continue monitoring, but take no action unless they somehow develop faster-than-light capability. The technician's skin flashed acknowledgement, but he remained in position. "Admiral, there is one unusual aspect to their recent activity." "Explain quickly." "Some of their new probes appear to be heading toward the outer regions of their system. Our analysts believe they may be attempting to establish observation posts." Cathara considered this information briefly. Many primitive species became more active when they detected signs of advanced civilizations nearby. It was a natural survival response, though usually futile. "Probably trying to get a better view of what's happening in civilized space," she concluded. "Let them look. By the time they understand what they're seeing, we'll control everything worth controlling in this galactic region." The technician departed, and Cathara turned her attention back to more important matters. The conquest of the Nethrim collective required careful coordination between multiple fleet groups. Each bioship needed to be positioned perfectly to take advantage of the collective's weaknesses while avoiding their few remaining effective weapons. Through the ship's sensory network, she could feel the deep current adjusting course toward the next battle zone. The bioship's living computers were already calculating optimal attack patterns based on the latest intelligence about Nethrim defensive positions. As the hegemony's war machine continued its relentless advance, reports about minor species throughout the region flowed constantly through the military intelligence networks. Most were filed away without any senior officer ever reading them. The galaxy was full of primitive civilizations that were just beginning to explore space or sending out their first radio signals. The Sol system. Insects appeared in these reports with increasing frequency as their activity levels continued to rise. Automated systems noted that they had begun launching larger spacecraft and had established several permanent installations in orbit around their home planet. Their electromagnetic emissions were becoming more sophisticated and covered a wider range of frequencies. Of this data was processed by Zephyrian artificial intelligence systems that had been programmed to recognize specific types of threats. Advanced weapons signatures, faster-than-light drive emissions, and large-scale military mobilizations would trigger immediate alerts. Increased radio chatter and primitive spacecraft launches were classified as normal development for emerging species. The computers did note that human development seemed to be proceeding unusually rapidly compared to most other primitive species. However, this observation was filed under accelerated insect social development and given no special significance. In the command pools of bioships throughout the hegemony fleet, senior officers occasionally reviewed these automated reports during quiet periods between battles. Most paid little attention to the entries about minor species unless they represented immediate threats or valuable resources. Admiral Cathara herself reviewed the Sol system data exactly once during this period, spending approximately 30 seconds reading a summary that described continued insect agitation and expanded nest-building activities. She approved the recommendation to maintain passive monitoring and moved on to planning the final assault on Nethrim, space. The hegemony's confidence was absolute. Their bioships had proven superior to every technology they had encountered. Their adaptive weapons could counter any defense, and their living hulls could repair damage faster than most enemies could inflict it. They had conquered crystalline cities, absorbed energy beings, and reduced entire civilizations to scattered refugees. What possible threat could a bunch of insects pose to such overwhelming power? The very idea would have been amusing if any Zephyrian had bothered to consider it seriously. As the war against the Nethrim Collective entered its final phase, the hegemony began planning for the next stage of expansion. Scouts were already identifying target systems in the Orion Arm, a relatively unexplored region that appeared to contain several potentially valuable worlds. The insects in the Sol system were located right in the middle of that expansion zone. When the time came, they would need to be dealt with appropriately. But that was a problem for the future, after more important conquests had been completed. For now, they remained what they had always been in Zephyrian eyes: insignificant bugs crawling around on an unimportant rock, making noise and building primitive structures while their betters reshaped the galaxy around them. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Hornet, watching the tactical display with cold calculation. 3 months ago, humanity had detected the approaching Zephyrian advance fleet through their outer monitoring stations. The aliens had made no attempt at stealth, clearly believing they faced no significant opposition. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Martinez from the sensor station. "Confirmed bioship signature, displacement approximately 800,000 tons. Sarah nodded grimly. The Zephyrian vessels were massive compared to human ships, but humanity had learned not to judge opponents by size alone. Their intelligence networks had been studying the aliens for months, analyzing every scrap of data from their conquest of other species. "All ships, this is Hornet Actual," she broadcast on the tactical frequency. "Execute attack pattern Omega-7. Remember, these things adapt fast, so we get one good shot before they figure us out." The 12 destroyers of Task Force 7 moved into position with practiced precision. Each ship carried weapons specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses that human analysts had identified in Zephyrian biotechnology. Where other species had tried to fight the aliens conventionally, humanity had chosen a different approach. Commander Velnok floated in the command center of the bioship Tidecaller, reviewing the tactical situation with growing confusion. His sensors showed 13 small vessels approaching in what appeared to be a standard attack formation. The ships were primitive by hegemony standards, powered by simple fusion reactors and armed with kinetic weapons. "Standard response protocol," he ordered. "Deploy adaptive screening organisms and begin hull hardening procedures." The Tidecaller's living hull responded immediately, growing specialized defensive structures across its surface. Thousands of small biomechanical organisms swarmed out from launch bays, forming a protective cloud around the ship. These creatures had proven effective against every weapon system the hegemony had encountered so far. What happened next shattered every assumption. Velnok had about primitive species. The lead human ship fired a single projectile that passed harmlessly through the defensive screen. For a moment, the Zephyrian commander felt relief. Then the projectile detonated and his relief turned to horror. The weapon released a cloud of metallic particles that spread rapidly through space. Within seconds, the defensive organisms began dying in massive numbers. The particles had been designed specifically to target the unique biological processes that kept the creatures alive. "Impossible," Velnok gurgled. "How could they know our defensive biology?" Before his crew could respond, the human ships opened fire with their main weapons. Instead of trying to punch through the bioship's armor, they targeted specific weak points that previous battles had revealed. Hull breaches appeared in critical locations, causing massive decompression that the ship's healing systems couldn't repair fast enough. But the real shock came when the human ships changed their formation mid-battle. Instead of maintaining safe distances like civilized opponents, they accelerated directly toward the Tidecaller at maximum speed. "They're going to ram us," someone reported with disbelief. Velnok watched in stunned amazement as one of the human destroyers slammed into his ship's flank at tremendous velocity. The impact carved a massive wound in the bioship's hull and killed hundreds of crew members. But the human ship had also been destroyed completely in the collision. Who sacrifices an entire vessel for a single tactical advantage? He wondered aloud. His question was answered moments later when the breach caused by the ramming attack allowed the remaining human ships to target the Tidecaller's vital organs directly. Specialized warheads designed to disrupt biological systems tore through the ship's interior, causing cascading failures throughout its living structure. As his command ship died around him, Velnok transmitted a desperate warning to the rest of the advance fleet. These are not insects. Repeat, these are not insects. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered. Admiral Cathara received Velnok's transmission in her command pool aboard the Deep Current, hundreds of light years away. The initial report had been almost incomprehensible. An entire Zephyrian bioship destroyed by primitive fusion-powered vessels? It seemed impossible. Get me a full tactical analysis, she ordered. I want to know exactly how this happened. Within hours, the reports began arriving from the advance fleet. Every engagement told the same story. The humans fought with a combination of scientific precision and savage determination that no hegemony opponent had ever displayed. Where other species had tried to match Zephyrian bioships in straight combat, the humans used swarm tactics. They coordinated their attacks with perfect timing, sacrificing individual ships without hesitation to achieve tactical objectives. Their weapons had been specifically designed to counter biological systems, suggesting they had been studying the hegemony for much longer than anyone had realized. How many ships have we lost? Cathara asked grimly. 17 bioships destroyed, 11 severely damaged, came the reply. The humans have lost approximately 60 vessels, but they appear to have many more in reserve. The Admiral's tentacles curled with growing unease. Those loss ratios were completely unacceptable. Zephyrian bioships represented centuries of biological engineering and enormous resource investments. They were not supposed to be traded away against primitive spacecraft. What about their tactical doctrine? She demanded. The intelligence officer's skin flashed with confused patterns. Admiral, they don't appear to have a conventional doctrine at all. They adapt their tactics continuously throughout each engagement. Our ships begin defensive modifications and the humans immediately change their attack methods to counter the modifications. Cathara processed this information with growing alarm. Adaptive tactics were supposed to be a Zephyrian advantage. Their bioships could evolve new capabilities during battle, allowing them to counter enemy strategies in real time, but the humans seemed to be adapting even faster. Show me the tactical recordings, she commanded. The holographic display filled with battle footage from the advance fleet's encounters. Cathara watched human ships darting between massive biovessels like angry insects, striking vulnerable points with surgical precision. But these weren't the random attacks of mindless bugs. Every movement was calculated. Every sacrifice served a specific purpose. In one engagement, she watched a human ship deliberately expose itself to enemy fire in order to gather data about Zephyrian weapon systems. The ship was destroyed, but its sensor readings were transmitted to the rest of the human fleet, which immediately adjusted their defensive patterns to counter the bioship's weapons. They're learning from every exchange, she realized. Each battle makes them more effective. Her aide swam closer with additional reports. Admiral, our xenobiologists have revised their assessment of the human species. They no longer classify them as insects. What do they classify them as? Cathara asked, though she dreaded the answer. An emergent hive intelligence with distributed processing capabilities. The individual humans appear to function as specialized nodes in a larger decision-making network. They can coordinate actions across vast distances with minimal communication delay. Cathara felt the water around her grow cold. The implications were staggering. The hegemony had been treating humanity as a primitive species, when they were actually dealing with some kind of collective intelligence that could think and react faster than any individual. Commander, how many humans are there? She asked quietly. Current estimates suggest a population of approximately 12 billion across multiple worlds and space installations. Their industrial capacity appears to be growing exponentially. The Admiral closed her eye stalks and tried to process what she was hearing. 12 billion individuals functioning as components of a single vast intelligence, supported by rapidly expanding industrial infrastructure. No wonder they could sacrifice ships without hesitation and adapt tactics faster than bioships could evolve. Recall the advance fleet immediately, she ordered. full defensive deployment around all hegemony core worlds, and send a priority message to the Council of Depths. We need to completely reassess our expansion into the Orion Arm. As the orders went out across the hegemony's communication networks, Cathara remained in her command pool, staring at the tactical displays. The humans had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They weren't just another species to be conquered and absorbed. They were a completely new type of opponent, one that challenged every assumption about how galactic warfare was supposed to work. And if the early battle reports were accurate, they were just getting started. The emergency session of the Council of Depths convened in the deepest chambers of the hegemony's capital world. Ancient Zephyrians who had guided their species for millennia floated in the ceremonial pools, their bioluminescent patches flickering with agitation. The water itself seemed to pulse with nervous energy as chemical signals carried information and emotion between the assembled leaders. Elder Morghast, oldest of the council members, tasted the fear chemicals in the water and spoke with a voice like distant thunder. Admiral Cathara explained to us how a species we classified as insects has destroyed over 50 of our bioships in less than 10 cycles. Cathara's tentacles curled defensively as she accessed the holographic displays that filled the chamber's center. Battle footage played in 3 dimensions, showing human ships moving with impossible coordination while Zephyrian biovessels burned around them. Honored elders, we have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of this species, she began. They do not function as individuals in the way we assumed. Each human appears to be part of a larger collective intelligence that can process information and make decisions faster than our ship minds can adapt. Elder Villandra's skin flashed skeptical patterns. You're suggesting that billions of separate organisms somehow function as a single entity? That violates everything we know about evolutionary biology. Watch this engagement, Cathara replied, highlighting a specific battle sequence. Human Fleet Group 7 encounters our bioship Darkwater. Within minutes of first contact, they identify and exploit 3 separate vulnerabilities in the ship's defensive systems. But look at the timing. The display showed human vessels executing perfectly coordinated attacks with split-second precision. Ships positioned themselves to create crossfire patterns that maximize damage while minimizing their own exposure. Most remarkably, several ships sacrificed themselves to create tactical opportunities for others, with no apparent hesitation or confusion. The decision to sacrifice those vessels was made and executed in less than 12 seconds, Cathara continued. No individual commander could coordinate such complex tactics so quickly. They have to be operating as part of a distributed intelligence network. Elder Morghast's ancient eyes studied the tactical data with growing concern. How many human vessels have we confirmed? Current estimates suggest they have over 2,000 ships of various classes, came the reply. But Admiral, that number is increasing rapidly. Our long-range scouts report massive industrial activity throughout the Sol system and their colonial worlds. The chamber fell silent, except for the gentle sound of water circulation systems. Finally, Elder Villandra spoke the question that was haunting all of them. How rapidly are they expanding their fleet? Cathara's skin flashed with colors that conveyed barely controlled panic. Based on observed construction rates, they appear to be completing approximately 50 new vessels every cycle. The rate is accelerating. On Earth, the transformation was total. Every major industrial facility had been converted to wartime production. Automated factories worked around the clock, churning out the components needed for humanity's growing fleet. What had taken months to build before the war now rolled off production lines in weeks. Director James Park stood in the command center of the Sol Defense Coordination Network, watching data streams from across human space. 12 billion people had become part of a single, focused effort with a clarity of purpose that would have terrified the Zephyrians if they had truly understood. My production report, he requested. We're exceeding all projections, replied Dr. Lisa Wang from the Manufacturing Oversight Station. The distributed fabrication network is operating at 347% of pre-war capacity. We've completed 1,847 vessels since the first engagement, with another 623 in final assembly stages. Park nodded grimly. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment without even knowing it. The global communication networks, the automated manufacturing systems, the space-based industrial infrastructure, all of it had been building toward the day when 12 billion humans would need to think and act as one. Fleet deployment status? Admiral Chen's task forces are engaging Zephyrian probe fleets along the outer perimeter, reported Commander Torres. We're maintaining the illusion that our main strength is concentrated in the Sol system while our deep strike forces move into position. The humans had learned something crucial from their initial encounters with Zephyrian forces. The aliens expected conventional warfare with predictable fleet movements and traditional tactical thinking. Instead, humanity was giving them something unprecedented. Total war fought by an entire species that could coordinate its efforts across interstellar distances. Admiral Cathara received the latest intelligence reports in her command pool aboard the Deep Current. Now positioned in the heavily defended core systems of the hegemony, the news grew worse with each transmission. Admiral, the humans have established forward bases in 17 star systems, reported her intelligence officer. They're not just building ships, they're creating entire industrial complexes that can operate independently. Cathara's tentacles writhed with frustration. How is this possible? It takes us decades to establish a single shipyard in a new system. The humans appear to use swarm construction techniques, came the reply. They deploy thousands of small automated units that work together to build larger facilities. The process is extremely rapid and doesn't require the biological adaptation periods that our systems need. The Admiral studied the tactical displays with growing desperation. Red markers showing human activity were spreading across the star charts like some kind of infection. Each marker represented not just military presence but industrial capacity that could produce more ships, more weapons, more threats to the hegemony. What about their tactical capabilities? Improving exponentially. Each engagement reveals new weapon systems and tactics. Our bioships are adapting as quickly as possible, but the humans seem to anticipate our adaptations and counter them before we can implement them effectively. Cathara closed her eye stalks and tried to comprehend what they were facing. The hegemony had conquered dozens of species over the centuries, absorbing their technologies and wisdom. But none of those victories had prepared them for an enemy that could think faster, build faster, and adapt faster than anyone had imagined possible. Casualties? She asked quietly. We have lost 127 bioships with minimal human losses. They appear to consider their vessels expendable and replace them faster than we can destroy them. The numbers told a story that Cathara didn't want to believe. The hegemony's carefully built military machine was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that treated warfare like an industrial process. Where Zephyrians saw individual bioships as valuable assets to be preserved, humans saw spacecraft as tools to be used and replaced as needed. In the deepest pools of the capital world, the Council of Depth struggled to develop a response to the human threat. Their ancient wisdom, accumulated over millennia of careful expansion and absorption of lesser species, offered no guidance for dealing with an opponent like this. We could attempt to negotiate, suggested Elder Korthek. Perhaps they would accept tribute in exchange for halting their expansion. Elder Morgast's tentacles curled with bitter amusement. Negotiate with insects? They have shown no interest in communication beyond the simple message they broadcast after each victory. Surrender or be destroyed. Very efficient. Very insect-like. Then what do you suggest? Demanded Elder Vilandra. Our current losses are unsustainable. At this rate, they will destroy our entire fleet within 50 cycles. The chamber fell silent as the council members contemplated their options. For the first time in their species' history, the Zephyrians faced an opponent that seemed to be superior in every way that mattered for warfare. We have one advantage, Elder Morgast said finally. We know where they come from. Their homeworld remains in the Sol system, along with most of their population. If we could strike directly at their core. Admiral Cathara's skin flashed warning colors. Honored Elder, their homeworld is defended by thousands of ships and orbital installations. A direct assault would be extremely costly. More costly than allowing them to continue their expansion unopposed, the Elder replied. Every cycle we delay, they grow stronger. We must strike now, while we still have the strength to do so. As the Council debated strategy, human ships continued to spread across the galaxy like a vast swarm of mechanical insects. Each vessel carried the concentrated will of 12 billion minds focused on a single objective, the elimination of any threat to human survival. The Zephyrians had been right about one thing. The humans really were insects, but they had failed to understand what that meant until it was far too late to matter. The assault on the hegemony's core worlds began exactly 1 year after first contact. Admiral Marcus Webb floated in the command center of the UES Swarm Queen, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of over 3,000 human vessels. Operation Termite, as it had been designated, represented the largest military coordination effort in human history. "All task forces report ready," announced Captain Rodriguez from the communications station. "We have confirmed positions on 17 Zephyrian worlds simultaneously." Webb studied the tactical overview with satisfaction. The humans had learned to think like their enemies, using captured biotechnology against its creators. But where the Zephyrians had relied on individual bioships as command centers, humanity had distributed command authority across multiple vessels, making their fleets nearly impossible to disrupt. "Execute Phase 1, he ordered. Across 17 star systems, human fleets emerged from hyperspace at precisely the same moment. The coordination required split-second timing across interstellar distances, something that would have been impossible for any species that relied on individual commanders making independent decisions. The Zephyrian defenders reacted quickly, their bioships moving to intercept the attacking forces with practiced efficiency. Admiral Kethara, commanding the defense of the capital world, watched the tactical displays with growing horror as the scope of the human assault became clear. "They're attacking everything simultaneously," she reported to the Council of Depths. "Every core world, every major installation, every shipyard. How many ships do they have?" The answer came from multiple sources as Zephyrian commanders throughout the Empire transmitted desperate status reports. The humans had somehow assembled the largest fleet in recorded galactic history, and they were using it with devastating effectiveness. "Admiral, the bioship Deep Current is under attack," reported her tactical officer. "The humans are using our own defensive organisms against us." Kethara watched in disbelief as human vessels deployed clouds of biomechanical creatures that looked exactly like Zephyrian defensive systems. But these organisms had been modified, turned into weapons that specifically targeted the biological processes that kept bioships alive. How did they capture and modify our biotechnology so quickly? She wondered aloud. The answer was terrifyingly simple. Humanity had been studying Zephyrian capabilities from the very first engagement, analyzing every fragment of destroyed bioships, every defensive organism they could recover. Their scientists had reverse-engineered biological systems that had taken the hegemony centuries to develop, then improved upon them within months. Webb watched his fleet tear through the Zephyrian defenses with mechanical precision. Each human ship knew exactly what role it needed to play in the larger battle plan. When vessels were destroyed, others immediately moved to fill their positions. When Zephyrian bioships adapted new defenses, human weapons adapted even faster to counter them. "Breakthrough at Grid 7, reported the tactical display. "Human forces have penetrated the orbital defense network around the capital world." The Admiral smiled grimly. The Zephyrians had built their empire by conquering species that fought like individuals. They had never faced an enemy that could coordinate the actions of billions of separate units as if they were parts of a single vast organism. "Begin. Atmospheric insertion," he commanded. Thousands of human drop pods launched from the attacking fleet, carrying ground forces equipped with weapons specifically designed for fighting in the water-filled cities of the Zephyrian homeworld. The humans had studied every aspect of their enemy's biology and technology, turning that knowledge into tools of war. In the deepest chambers of the capital, the Council of Depths gathered for what they knew would be their final session. The ancient pools that had served as meeting places for thousands of years now shook with the vibrations of human weapons striking the city. Above, Elder Morghast floated in water that had turned dark with fear chemicals from the assembled council members. "Our empire is falling," he admitted with the weight of millennia in his voice. "In 1 year, the insects have undone everything we built over 10,000 years. How is this possible?" demanded Elder Valandra. "We conquered dozens of species. We absorbed their technologies and wisdom. How could primitives from a single world destroy us so completely?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Admiral Kethara's bioship had been destroyed in the orbital battle, but she had managed to reach the council chambers before the end. Her tentacles were scarred from battle damage and her skin showed the pale colors of despair. "Honored elders, we made a fundamental error in our assessment of these beings," she said. "We thought they were insects and we were correct. but we failed to understand what that truly meant. "Explain," ordered Elder Morghast. "Insects survive everything," Cathara replied. "They adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle, and when threatened, they don't fight alone. They bring the entire hive. We treated them as individuals, when they are actually components of something much larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined." The council chamber shuddered as human forces breached the outer barriers of the deep city. Through the bioorganic walls, they could hear the sounds of Zephyrian defenders falling back level by level. "We called them bugs," the Admiral continued. "We were right, but we forgot that bugs are among the most successful forms of life in the galaxy. They multiply rapidly, adapt constantly, and never give up. When you threaten their nest, they come for you with everything they have." The main entrance to the council chamber exploded inward, and human soldiers in environmental suits poured through the breach. Their weapons were designed specifically for underwater combat, and their movements showed the same perfect coordination that had characterized every human military action. Marcus Webb entered the chamber last, his suit's external speakers allowing him to communicate with the surviving Zephyrians. He surveyed the assembled council members with cold efficiency before speaking. "I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Fleet," he announced. "You called us insects. You were right." Elder Morghast raised his tentacles in a gesture of surrender, his ancient voice carrying the weight of his species' defeat. "What terms do you offer?" Webb's response was delivered with the emotionless precision of someone conveying a decision made by 12 billion minds working in perfect unity. "But you forgot that insects survive everything, adapt to anything, and when threatened, they don't fight alone, they bring the entire swarm. Your empire is finished. Your worlds will be occupied. Your technology will be studied and absorbed. Any resistance will be eliminated with extreme efficiency." The Admiral paused, studying the defeated aliens with the same analytical intensity that humans had applied to every aspect of Zephyrian civilization. "You had thousands of years to build your empire by conquering primitive species one at a time. We studied you for 1 year and destroyed everything you created. Do you understand the difference?" Elder Morghast's tentacles curled with bitter understanding. "You are not just insects. You are a hive mind with the tools of a technological civilization." "Exactly," Webb confirmed. "And now you know what happens when you threaten a hive that has learned to build starships." As human forces secured the capital city and began the process of dismantling the hegemony's government, similar scenes played out on worlds throughout their former empire. The Zephyrian military had been designed to fight individual enemies with predictable tactics. They had no defense against an opponent that could think and act as a unified force across interstellar distances. Within 6 months, the last Zephyrian strongholds had fallen. The species that had dominated their region of the galaxy for millennia found themselves scattered as refugees among the very worlds they had once conquered. Admiral Webb stood in the command center of the former hegemony capital, now renamed New Geneva, watching as human industrial teams began the process of converting Zephyrian biotechnology for human use. The aliens' greatest achievements would serve the swarm that had destroyed them. "Status report on Galactic expansion," he requested. "Survey. Fleets have identified 47 additional star systems, suitable for immediate colonization," came the reply. "Industrial expansion is proceeding ahead of schedule. We should have self-sufficient colonies established within 2 years." Webb nodded with satisfaction. The humans had learned valuable lessons from their conflict with the Zephyrians. Never again would they allow potential threats to develop unopposed. The galaxy was vast, but it was not infinite. Eventually, other species would notice humanity's expansion and attempt to stop it. When that day came, they would discover what the Zephyrians had learned too late. The insects from Sol didn't just survive, they thrived, multiplied, and never forgot a threat. The age of human expansion had begun, carried forward by 12 billion minds working as one vast, implacable intelligence across the galaxy. Automated monitoring stations detected the rapid spread of human settlements and industrial facilities. Other species watched nervously as the newcomers established themselves with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.